In this video, I'm going to be showing you a super easy and simple samosa pastry recipe that you're absolutely going to love, and I only need 4 key ingredients for this recipe. So you're going to find everything listed in the description box in the right quantity. To get started, I have 4 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to add in a teaspoon of salt. Adding salt to your all-purpose flour is going to season the samosa pastry, so don't skip on the salt. Next, I'm going to slowly add in cold water. And using my fork, I'm going to mix the water with the all-purpose flour. It is really important to add the water slowly because you don't want a very soft dough. You can also use your hands to combine the dough. So once a dough is starting to form, just like mine, I'm going to go in with my hands. Make sure to go to the bottom of the bowl because you want to make sure all the all-purpose flour is fully combined in the dough. I find that adding cold water while making the samosa dough makes it easy to work with the dough. So I would recommend you try out using cold water. So you're going to knead the dough for around 5 minutes. So the dough shouldn't be soft because when you make a soft dough like the one for chapati, it's going to give you a very hard time. So make sure the dough is a little bit firm while kneading. So if you notice that the dough is super sticky, that you have added a lot of water and the dough is sticky, you can add in bits of all-purpose flour and knead until you get the right dough. And if the dough is too dry, add in a teaspoon or 2 of water until you get a firm dough. This is how the dough is looking like after kneading, and you can see that the dough is not sticky at all. So I'm going to knead for another 2 minutes to make the time mark of 5 minutes. Once done kneading the dough, you're going to sprinkle in some all-purpose flour on your countertop and transfer the dough. Just like that. Then I'm going to knead the dough on my countertop for around 1 minute. Once done, you're going to shape the dough in a rod and cut into equal pieces of dough, just like I'm showing you. After kneading the dough should be easy to handle and not sticky at all because, as I said earlier, the dough should be firm and stiff. So you're going to pick each piece of dough and tuck in the middle, just like I'm showing you, forming a very nice and even round shape. Place aside and make the rest. If you have a scale, you can also use to weigh your dough because you want the pieces of dough to be even. I have 14 pieces of dough over here which are ready for the next step. I'm going to place aside just to get some more space to work on my samosa pastry. So now I'm going to be showing you the next step. So you're going to pick 1 piece of dough, just like that. Sprinkle in a little bit of all-purpose flour and press down. Remember, I've not used the cooking oil that is listed in the description box. So at this point, we are going to be doing that. So I'll use a rolling pin and roll out the dough a little bit. So you're going for a round shape. And also don't flatten the dough too much. So once done, I'm going to pick my brush and the cooking oil and spread a thin layer of cooking oil on the dough. Make sure you go to the edges of the dough. Once done, I'm going to place my piece of dough aside and pick another piece of dough. Roll out in the same size. Just like that. And then I'm going to stack. Place the other piece of dough on top, just like that. Next, you're going to spread a thin layer of vegetable oil on your dough. And then you're going to place another piece of dough on top and repeat. While stacking the pieces of dough, make sure to align the sides. And then you're going to press down using the palm of your hands, just like that. This is going to make the dough to level up a little bit. Once the dough is a little bit flat, use a rolling pin and roll out the dough, making horizontal and vertical movements until the dough is thin. Spread some more all-purpose flour when necessary and carefully roll out the dough into a very thin shape. At this point, you're going to place a pan over a medium flame. So adding a thin layer of cooking oil while stacking the dough is going to help you while rolling out the dough, because the dough will not slide off each other. I don't know if that makes sense, but here is a very good example. If you spread a lot of oil on while stacking the pieces of dough, as you roll, the dough will slide off each other. So make sure you spread a very thin layer of cooking oil. So at this point, this is how my dough is looking like. Once done and my dough is thin, I'm going to transfer to my frying pan, just like that. Carefully move the dough around as the dough cooks, because you want the edges to also cook. And in about 20 to 30 seconds, you're going to see bubbles in the pieces of dough. So you're going to flip so that the other side can cook. Once you flip, you're going to carefully remove the upper piece of dough that is already cooked, and be careful because the piece of dough is very hot. If the samosa pastry is well cooked, it will be very much easy for you to remove from the rest of the dough. And transfer to a kitchen towel, cover so that the pieces of dough don't dry out while I make the rest. You're going to repeat until you are done with the rest of the dough. And if you can't work with 4 pieces of dough, you can stack 2 pieces of dough just like I'm doing. And when rolling out the dough using your rolling pin, if you notice that the dough isn't aligned, You can stretch the piece of dough that is not aligned with the rest and make sure everything is looking perfect. Also make sure to push the edges of the dough because you want everything to be thin. Patience is the key while making the samosa pastry because it takes a lot of time and muscle. But trust me, when you get used to making the samosa pastry, you'll be making samosa every single Saturday or Sunday for your family. The first time I made samosa pastry, I made the pastry using warm water, and let me tell you, that was quite a challenge. So I just threw the entire batch. It was just a fail. Yeah, that is what I'm trying to say. So I've discovered using cold water is the key to making perfect samosa pastry because the dough is easy to handle. So when I say cold water, it means that water that is chilled in the fridge, not tap water that is cold. The next step is to trim my samosa pastry into a round shape, and I'm going to be using a round plate. You can use anything that you have in the house that is round. So I'm going to place on top, and make sure you place in the middle of the pastry. Using a sharp knife, you're going to trim off the excess pastry, just like that. Make sure you're using a very sharp knife so that you can have a clean cut. After trimming off the samosa pastry into a very round shape, I'm going to pick up my plate and place aside. So these are the offcuts of the samosa pastry. I'm going to place the samosa offcuts on my plate, and please don't throw the offcuts away because you can reuse either by frying or by adding some water to the pastry and let that sit for around 10 minutes. You'll come back and find that the pastry has softened up, so you can add some more all-purpose flour and make maybe some chapati. I'm going to pick one piece of pastry and fold into half, just like that. This is going to guide me in cutting the rest of the pastry. So I'm going to follow the line and cut in half. Then I'm going to unfold the top one and repeat. Once done, I'm going to fold in quarter, just like that. And that will guide me in cutting into quarters. Unfold and repeat. So once done, this is how my samosa pastry is looking like. Just look at that. So I'm going to stack, place on top of the other stack, and place on top of the other stack. Just look at that. As I said earlier on that you need patience for making samosa pastry. Yeah, it has been 1 hour and I'm done making my samosa pastry and they're looking so awesome. This is a lot of samosa pastry and I'm surely going to make so many samosas from my samosa pastry. So it has been an amazing video and I hope you have watched until the end of the video to learn how to make this very easy samosa pastry. Catch you on my next video.